Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching the Breakfast News with me, Frank Pereira. First up, a look at the headlines. Incursions by Chinese troops in eastern Ladakh ahead of President Jinping's India visit. The border dispute and Chinese investment in India likely to top the agenda. India extends $100 million export credit to Vietnam for defense deals. Oil exploration in the South China Seas also among 7 agreements signed during President Pranab Mukherjee's visit. Leaders of 30 countries meeting in Paris call for a united global response against atrocities of the Islamic State militant group in Iraq and Syria. In a final drive to stop the United Kingdom from splitting, chiefs of Britain's 3 main political parties issue a joint pledge to give the Scottish Parliament more powers if its voters reject independence. A counting of votes has just gotten underway in 3 Lok Sabha and 33 Assembly constituencies spread across 10 states where by-polls were held on September 13th. The 3 Lok Sabha seats are in Vadodara, Gujarat, vacated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mainpuri, Uttar Pradesh and Medak, Telangana, while 11 Assembly constituencies are in Uttar Pradesh, 9 in Gujarat, 4 in Rajasthan, 2 in West Bengal, 5 in the northeastern states and 1 each in Chhattisgarh and Andhra Pradesh. Going on now, Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah has come down hard on separatists who he said were looking for political mileage from relief efforts in the flood-ravaged state. He was responding to a Rajya Sabha TV exclusive in which a youth Congress leader claimed that JKLF Chief Yasin Malik forcibly took over the boat when they were using to distribute relief material and used it to distribute material of his own.
One of the delegation met the Prime Minister also. What kind of?
I sent a team of my senior ministers because I thought it was important at this time to brief the Government of India about what we are doing, to thank Government of India for all their support, particularly the Prime Minister, the Union Government, the agencies that are operating here, Army, Air Force, NDRF, the paramilitary forces, everybody. And also to present a memorandum to the Prime Minister outlining some of the assistance that we require. Obviously, a detailed memo will be prepared once teams of experts visit the areas, but this was a sort of an interim memorandum outlining some of the areas in which we require help.
One more thing, sir. Today I met the senior Congress leader Ambika Soni. She said that some of the boats where she was trying in Badshaw area, so near the Lal Chowk, they have been overpowered by the Yasin Malik and JKLF.
Now, I'm not sure what area Ambika Soni ji is talking about. Yes, there was a localized problem in the Badshaw Chowk area, Maisuma area. It is a fact that there are some people who are trying to draw political mileage out of this crisis, which I think is extremely unfortunate. In this time of difficulty, we should be coming together to help people. But Kashmir's biggest tragedy has always been that we compound our problems rather than reduce them, and this is just another example.
Well, staying on with the floods in Kashmir now, the Supreme Court has directed the centre and the Jammu and Kashmir government to ensure that relief and medical facilities reach all those affected. The top court's views come amid reports of anguish over slow relief work. Close to 2.5 lakh people have been rescued so far. Here's a ground report.
While rescue and relief operations continue in the valley, victims have been complaining about the slow pace of relief work. One of the key reasons being lack of connectivity. The crucial Jammu-Srinagar highway is still closed.
I am at Pantha Chowk, the bypass road that leads to Jammu on my left and to Srinagar city on my right. This highway has been closed since September 6th. All the shops, All the houses are submerged in water. The roads are damaged. It is a state in which river is flooded, nature's fury is at its worst, and the plight of people cannot be fathomed.
This area in Poonch has been cut off for the last 2 weeks with more than 50,000 people stranded. There are other places in the state where people are still awaiting relief material.
रोड बंद होने की वजह से हम लोग भूखे मर रहे हैं। हमें राशन नहीं मिल रहा और 8 दिन कोई आटा चावल कुछ चीज़ की हमें सहायता नहीं मिली।
Hearing a petition on rescue and relief work, the Supreme Court has asked the centre and the state government to take more steps to rehabilitate flood victims. It has also asked to make relief materials and medicines available to all those affected.
अभी भी काफ़ी हद तक 5 फुट 7 फुट 10 फुट तक पानी है। वहाँ कई घरों तक वहाँ कोई चीज़ आदमी नहीं पहुँच सका, ना ही कोई टीम वहाँ पहुँच सकी। कोई हमारे पास जरिया नहीं है। हमें एक्स ग्रेशिया दी जाए, जिसमें कोर्ट ने कंसर्न दिखाया और कोर्ट ने स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को, सेंटर को एडवाइस दिया भाई इस एक्स ग्रेशिया पर नज़र रखे और अगर एक्स ग्रेशिया मुनासिब हो तो इनको जल्द से जल्द दिया जाए।
The centre has submitted a list of steps taken and said all necessary items are being supplied. So far, close to 250,000 people have been rescued by defence personnel and NDRF teams. J&K Power Minister also said that electricity has been restored in most places.
बिजली लगभग 80-90% एरिया में जो है रेस्टोर हो चुकी है। जिस एरिया में पानी है उस एरिया में हमने रेस्टोर नहीं किया, इसलिए कि लोगों को करंट लगे, कहीं उससे कोई प्रॉब्लम ना आ जाए।
But there are still thousands of victims that are waiting to be rescued.
After the massive rescue operation, relief work has become the cynosure of all agencies in Jammu and Kashmir. We are at the Srinagar airport where a number of people have been stranded since long. Let's try and speak to some of them. यहाँ जब आप relief camp में आए तो आपको खाने पीने की सुविधा थी?
जी खाने पीने की कोई दिक्कत नहीं है हमें जब से हम आए, मगर हमें बस फुर्सत से घर पहुँचा दे और कोई नहीं चाहते, हम कुछ नहीं चाहते।
The devastating flood has instilled fear psychosis in people. All that they want now is to reach back their homes safely.
Meanwhile, massive dewatering operations have been launched in Srinagar. Efforts are on to drain out flood water using around 30 water pumps. With inputs from Kriti Mishra and Ravindra Sharan, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
It's time for a short break now, but on the other side, all the international news and updates. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, ahead of the Chinese President Jinping's visit to India starting tomorrow, fresh Chinese incursions have been reported along the India-China border. However, expectations run high from the visit. And now this particular visit, of course, with China is expected to pledge billions of dollars for mega infrastructure and economic projects in India. Let's now welcome our guest on the show this morning. We have with us diplomatic editor of The Hindu, Suhasini Haidar. Good morning, Suhasini, and welcome to the show. Let's talk about Jinping's visit to India. Now, of course, you know, there seems to be a pattern emerging every time there's a high-profile visit to India, or if an Indian delegate goes to China, there's always something that happens on the border between India and China. I mean, is this a pattern, do you think, or do you think this is just to, you know, divert attention from the visit, or what is it all about?
But I think one has to take one's cues firstly from the government, and in this case, as in the case 1 month ago, as you know, as you pointed out, when our minister was going to China as well, the army has not spoken about this incident. Then a month ago, the army denied that there was any incident. Yesterday, the Ministry of External Affairs was very categorical, said if there is any incident, our brave sentinels at the border will take care of it. The fact is, as you said, that there is a pattern. Whether it is a pattern of highlighting these incidents just before these high-profile visits, or whether it is a pattern of real belligerence from China. We know that there is a constant face-off, if you like, at the LAC. But why these flare-up just before these big visits is really the big question. For the moment, we have to go with what the central government has said, and they are certainly seeking to play this down. Okay, they certainly seem to play this down. It remains to be seen what's going to happen on the line of actual control, of course. But let's talk about
you know, the visit itself, and let's talk about what it brings to the table for India. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already said that this visit is going to strengthen ties between the two countries. Do you see that happening?
Absolutely. And if you heard the Chinese foreign minister last week, he said this will usher in a new era of bilateral ties. Look, there are many reasons why just the optics of this visit are going to be huge. This is only the third visit by a Chinese president to India, the first being a decade ago, 2 decades ago, and the second being a decade ago. This is also the first time Prime Minister Narendra Modi is doing this, but also I think in the first time in anyone's memory when an Indian Prime Minister has gone to another city to welcome President Xi Jinping, and reports saying that he's actually going to go to the airport to welcome him. That is a huge departure from the precedent. Why is this big departure being made? Because this visit is going to see some very large announcements coming. Whether it is on bilateral trade, whether it is on investment from China. We're hearing about industrial cities that China wants to invest in, investment to the tune of more than $100 billion. It will, in fact, eclipse that visit to Japan a few weeks ago when they were speaking about a $35 billion investment. We're also looking at new ways for the two to cooperate. Things like nuclear cooperation, civil nuclear cooperation could become a big ticket item. And all the 20-odd agreements that the two governments are likely to sign. And finally, there is that intractable problem that has been with us, a legacy for all these decades, of the border resolution. However, one must remember that this is a border that has remained more or less stable, that it is not a border that sees a huge amount of the kind of violence we see on the LOC, for example. And it's already, they have made a lot of progress. Last year, they were able to, in fact, bring out the new BDCA, the Border Dispute Control Mechanism, together. And it really remains to be seen where these two leaders can take that resolution, because both of them are now in a very secure place. They have nearly a decade between them, nearly 5 years between them of negotiating with each other, and they do feel that kind of confidence. We heard from the National Security Advisor last week in Beijing also expressing that confidence that perhaps these two leaders can go on the border resolution where others haven't.
This whole visit, of course, works well with Narendra Modi's larger plan, you know, inclusive growth that he keeps talking about. If you've seen, the Indian government has reached out to all its neighbors. The last one probably was China now. And it seems like a step in the right direction, doesn't it?
Well, certainly it's part of a larger plan. But let's also remember that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has a very deep link with China. This is a country that he has studied most closely, even more closely than those personal ties with Japan. He has studied China very closely as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, trying to bring in investment from China, but also trying to learn from the way China had grown over all these decades. So that is a large part of why this visit is so important. Remember, there have been some 5 top-level meetings before it between the army chiefs, foreign ministers. These two leaders have already met. So this is going to be different from all others. It's also, as you said, part of not just the neighborhood policy, but China has its own policy, the Maritime Silk Route policy. And that is something it wants India to be a part of. India has said that they would like to be a part of that plan as well. So maybe this is where those two worlds are going to collide.
Well, President Pranab Mukherjee is in Vietnam. A few deals were signed there. A couple of them were, you know, with regards to oil exploration in the South China Sea. Do you see that having any kind of an effect as far as President Jinping's visit to India is concerned? Because China has been extremely aggressive in that part of the world.
Absolutely. And China has in the past raised objections to these particular areas being explored as well off the Vietnamese coast. Certainly there is a message in there, and I think the government has tried in its own way to balance out the optics and the messages that are going out. The speech that Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave in Japan about expansionist forces was certainly a very direct message to China. The fact that he's meeting the Chinese president, sandwiched, if you like, between the Japanese visit and the visit to America as well. These are all messages that are going out. But I can assure you that from what we understand of this Chinese visit, this is really going to be a centerpiece for a long time to come.
Okay, it's going to be a centerpiece for a long time to come is how Suhasini Haidar is putting it. I'm going to ask you to stay with us, Suhasini. I'm going to take your reaction on the next report as well. Talking about Vietnam, of course, $100 million line of credit for defense purchases and strategically important oil and gas cooperation are at the center of 7 pacts India and Vietnam signed on the second day of President Pranab Mukherjee's 4-day visit to that country. The call for freedom of navigation in the South China Sea is a likely decisive message aimed at China. Here's more.
Barely a month after Prime Minister Narendra Modi sounded a veiled note of disapproval on China during his visit to Japan, India on Monday joined Vietnam in asserting that freedom of navigation in the disputed waters of South China Sea shouldn't be impeded. In a message directed at China, both nations urged collective commitment by everyone to the code of conduct in the South China Sea. In the presence of President Pranab Mukherjee, both countries signed 7 pacts to strengthen bilateral ties. The first being an agreement between ONGC and Petro-Vietnam to explore 2 additional blocks off Vietnam in the contested waters of the South China Sea. The next agreement was between Jet Airways and Air Vietnam. Under their new air connectivity deal, a daily flight connecting Delhi, Mumbai and Ho Chi Minh City will be operational from 5th November. Besides this, India will also extend a line of credit to Vietnam. Other agreements were on cooperation in agriculture, animal health, customs and youth affairs and skill development. India and Vietnam are looking to diversify trade to achieve a target of $15 billion by 2020. Bilateral trade stands at $8 billion at present. They also highlighted scope to expand ICT, science and technology, space and other areas. After a warm welcome ceremony, President Pranab Mukherjee started his Vietnam visit with a wreath-laying ceremony at the War Memorial. President Pranab Mukherjee held talks with his Vietnamese counterpart, Trong Tan Sang, on other international and regional issues. He will be travelling to Ho Chi Minh City on Tuesday. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
So, Asni, coming back to you now, of course, I read a report a couple of weeks ago in the Reuters, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it spoke about how, trade between Southeast Asian countries is going to increase threefold over the next 10 years or so. And it seems to be going in that direction with India taking the lead, doesn't it?
Well, certainly India has actually been a little reticent in signing the FTA with the ASEAN countries, but it has shown its interest in looking east. I think this is something we've seen in the previous government, and the new government has certainly reinforced that with all the visits we have seen so far, really looking to the east of India. But this particular visit to Vietnam is significant, and as you pointed out, the OVL joint venture is in fact significant, but also significant is that India is giving this line of credit for defense procurements to Vietnam. Now, much of that defense procurement will be in the naval sphere. And we know that this is the flashpoint between the Southeast Asian countries and China. So that is certainly a very strong message India is sending out of the sovereignty of these waters, as well as the rights of each of the countries along the South China Sea. So Vietnam is a part of that puzzle. And as you pointed out, India has taken the lead with a lot of other meetings as well, particularly External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj's visit to Myanmar for the ASEAN meeting as well. What really remains to be seen now is whether India is going to become an integral part of this grouping or not. There have been many invitations. India sometimes hasn't taken the advantage. Sometimes India has not been invited. The question is really, is India firmly going to see itself as a part of the grouping of these Southeast Asian countries? So far, while we have spoken a lot about it, we have not actually signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, we've not actually signed on the dotted line, but it seems like we will eventually sign on the dotted line. But of course, the US was a little miffed with India because of the Bali agreement, and we did not sign it. So that was one thing. But as far as the government is concerned, they have taken steps in the right direction in signing these agreements. Of course, they've not signed on the dotted line, like you said, but it's just a matter of time before that happens, doesn't it?
Well, certainly. And finally, just look at the kind of engagements that are stacked up for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I mean, apart from where his dignitaries are going, where President Pranab Mukherjee has gone, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj is going, even after this visit, it's going to continue. There's going to be the US visit. There's a huge reach out over there. But also after that, leading up to the G20 in Australia in November, possibly the SAARC summit coming up in November as well. Now, all of these summits are eventually going to lead somewhere. There are going to be agreements that come out of it. Even the Japan visit will see perhaps down the line some of the agreements that they weren't able to sign during the visit. So what we're seeing is by these engagements, the new government seems to be putting in place a timeline.
And a long-term strategy as well.
Well, hopefully all the results will bear fruit after that.
Yes. All right. So, Asni, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning and sharing your views on both those very crucial visits, of course. We'll slip into a short break on that note and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. Back, you're watching Rajya Sabha television. As India's Mars orbiter mission raced for its tryst with the Red Planet on September 24th, Indian space scientists are gearing up for the critical maneuver of the spacecraft. ISRO said yesterday it was confident about the mission's success going by its performance so far. The spacecraft has covered 98% of its 300-day odyssey so far. The mission, India's first interplanetary one, was launched on November 5th, 2013 from the spaceport of Sriharikota in Andhra Pradesh. If the 450 crore rupees mission turns out to be a success, ISRO would be the fourth space agency in the world to have sent a mission to Mars.
On 22nd, we are going to have a test fire of the LAM engine combined with the fourth trajectory correction maneuver. And after that, 24th morning, we are going to conduct the crucial Mars orbit insertion. That is the event slated for 24th. If we succeed on 24th, India will be the first Asian country to do a Mars mission. And in the whole world, India will be the first country to do it on a maiden first mission.
Leaders of 31 countries meeting in Paris have pledged support to the US-led coalition against the Islamic State militant group and backed military measures. However, no comments were made on a tougher diplomatic action in Syria. France has already sent its fighter jets on a reconnaissance mission over Iraq, pledging its support. The international conference was attended by the 5 UN Security Council members, European and Arab states, and representatives of the EU, Arab League and United Nations. All pledged to help the government in Baghdad fight against Islamic State militants. In Iraq, the US carried out airstrikes showing support of troops who were being attacked by IS fighters.
Ce mouvement terroriste s'est déployé sur tout un territoire, en Irak, en Syrie. Ce mouvement terroriste se joue des frontières et prétend même...
On to other news and updates from around the globe in our segment World Wrap. More than 500 migrants are feared to have drowned in the Mediterranean in one of the worst boat tragedies in recent times. The boat carrying over 700 migrants fleeing Africa is believed to have been sunk after being rammed deliberately by another vessel carrying smugglers. The incident happened off the coast of Malta last week. The dead include Syrians, Palestinians, Egyptians and Sudanese citizens trying to reach Europe. In a final drive to stop the United Kingdom from splitting, leaders of Britain's 3 main parties have issued a joint pledge to give the Scottish Parliament more powers if voters reject independence. The referendum vote is to be held on Thursday. The pledge, signed by Prime Minister David Cameron, reaffirmed a timetable for new powers announced by the 3 leaders last week. Syrian special forces have destroyed a bridge over the Euphrates River used by Islamic State to move supplies in eastern Syria, a blow to the group in the swathe of Syrian territory it controls near Iraq. The bridge is of vital importance to Islamic State as the only way for it to move into parts of the city it controls. At least 6 people were killed and 15 wounded in a shelling in rebel-held Donetsk in Ukraine on Monday. This is the worst violation yet of the ceasefire between Russian-backed rebels and Ukrainian troops that took effect on the 5th of September. Ukraine says its troops repelled an attack of 200 rebel fighters but suffered no military casualties. Hong Kong issued its 3rd highest storm alert for the first time this year as Typhoon Kalmegi sweeps across the city. Trading at the Hang Seng Stock Exchange has been delayed due to the typhoon threat. The local Met Office said this morning that Kalmegi was centered about 390 kilometers southwest of Hong Kong and is moving west-northwest at about 30 kilometers towards the Leizhou Peninsula and Henan Island in China. Well, here's an update now on the global stock markets. Let's first take a look at the Hang Seng and see how the global stock markets are doing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 43.63 points or 0.26% to close the day at 17,031. Standard & Poor's 500 lost 1.41 points or 0.07% to end the day at 1,984. The Nasdaq Composite dropped 48.70 points or 1.07% to finish at 4,518. Fresh fears of sluggish growth in China hit Asian stock markets on Monday on worries of higher US interest rates and signs that Europe is slowing. Japan's Nikkei was down 0.20% or 12.68 points to end the day at 15,916. Hong Kong's Hang Seng plunged 1.01% or 248.66 points to close at 24,346. Gold rose 0.33% to 27,170 per 10 grams on Monday as participants engaged in enlarging positions on a firming trend overseas. Silver also declined by 173 rupees or 0.42% to close at 41,097 per kilogram due to slackened demand from industrial units and coin makers. For all the action from the world of sports, here's the latest sports beat. Manchester United beat Queen's Park Rangers 4-0 to end its winless start to the Premier League season with a result and performance that may be seen as the true beginning to the Louis van Gaal era. Angel Di Maria and Ander Herrera scored their first goals for United. Wayne Rooney and Juan Mata also scored to give Van Gaal his first win in 5 competitive matches in charge. Debut goals from Hull pair Abel Hernandez and Mohamed Diame were only good enough for a draw against West Ham as Curtis Davis' own goal ensured the spoils were shared in the breathless encounter at the KC Stadium on Monday night in the English Premier League. Enner Valencia scored a stunner for West Ham, who comes from behind twice to draw 2-2 with Hull. Mauro Icardi scored his first ever hat-trick as Inter Milan beat 10-man Sassuolo 7-0 for its first win of the fledgling Italian League Serie A. New signing Paulo Osvaldo netted twice and Matteo Kovacic also scored his first league goal for Inter. The opponents, which lost at home by the same scoreline in its first meeting with Inter last season, also had forward Domenico Berardi sent off for an elbow on Juan Jesus. That's it on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.